The word classic gets thrown around a lot in music, but at the same time, there are also people who are hesitant to call certain albums or songs classic simply due to how subjective music can be, or if they think that not enough time has passed since a certain album has come out for the influence to really be measurable quite yet. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen, I don't care about any of that today. I present to you Bladee, Eversince. Eversince only came out in 2016, but so did Blonde, and people already call that a classic. And Kendrick Lamar's Damn, people called an instant classic, and it came out in 2017, and it's Kendrick Lamar's worst album. All that to say, forget journalistic integrity. Today I'm going to be doing a classic review of Bladee Eversince. The classic review that it always deserved, but never had. So to give a little context on the album, let's do a little mini history lesson first. Cloud rap is a term that's believed to have been popularized by Lil B, who dropped his highly influential cloud rap and West Coast hip-hop album Six Kiss in 2009. And shortly after that, in 2011, Space Ghost Perp came out with his own highly influential cloud rap mixtape, Blackland Radio 66.6. And later in 2011, Clams Casino, who did lots of the beats on Six Kiss, as well as Space Ghost Perp, came together to produce A$AP Rocky's spacey and slow-mo influential cloud rap mixtape Live Love A$AP. But across the Atlantic, late 2012, things were going down in Sweden, and Young Lean dropped his debut single, Oreo Milkshake. Citing Rocky and Space Ghost Perp as early influences, Young Lean and his whole Sad Boys troupe mixed the cloud rap take on a kind of Houston sound hip-hop with synths big enough to fill a Euro dance track, as well as some of the emo influences that were starting to creep into cloud rap with artists like Bones and Suicide Boys emerging at the time. And it all came together to form one unmistakable Young Lean Sad Boys style. Sticking to this style, Young Lean dropped his debut mixtape Unknown Death 2002 in 2013, helping popularize his style of cloudy emo rap across the internet. But not just fans took notice of the Swedish boys, but also other artists as well. And Young Lean ended up collaborating with Travis Scott in 2014, and he later made friends with the whole A$AP mob and a ton of other music industry insiders, mutually influencing people and planting his Sad Boys seed everywhere. Rocky helped popularize the cloud rap sound early on, but his real hit singles like Fucking Problems were not really super cloudy, they were more on the pop rap side, so it was really tracks like Travis Scott's Antidote from 2015 that were more pivotal to turning cloud rap into a mainstream hit. And once the ball got rolling, psychedelic and emo trap started to pretty much dominate the radio airwaves, with Post Malone's White Iverson in 2015, Black Beatles in 2016, EXO Tour Life, and Magnolia in 2017. And while Young Lean was at the epicenter of the birth of this sound, along with his quickly expanded group, which consisted of the members of the Gravity Boys as well as Shield Gang, they never ended up reaching the same level of success as a Lil Uzi Vert, Lil Peep, or Juice WRLD. Our Swedish meatballs are usually appreciated more for the influence of their music than the actual quality of it. This is where our star Bladee comes into play. I know that Blade's best project, and the best Gravity Boys Drain Gang project as well, is pretty hotly debated. Lots of people will prefer one of Young Lean's albums, or maybe Glue by Bladee. But while Young Lean and Blade's earlier projects like Unknown Death 2002 and Glue are definitely solid bodies of work, and they were released closer to the onset of cloud rap, so they might be more influential. Nonetheless, to me, 2016's Eversince marks the point where the whole Swedish sound that they were cultivating was really honed and perfected to the point where it stopped being just about influence and started reaching more into the boundary of truly great music. At the first icy explosion of autotune and bass, about 15 seconds into the first track, Who Goes There?, some listeners will probably already be turned off by pretty much the first thing that you need to discuss when talking about Blade's music, which are the vocals. I first discovered Who Goes There back in 2016 when I was getting really into Young Lean's music, and I thought White Armor's production was incredible. White Armor handles pretty much all the beats on Eversince, but I really just couldn't get over Blade's vocal style, so I can understand that it's a turnoff for a lot of listeners. But I've been listening to Bladee for about 4 years now, so maybe at this point I can offer a little insight into how to listen to Bladee's voice and also why people are drawn to it. The first thing to talk about is the wrong notes, because upon the first listen of lots of songs on Eversince and Bladee's songs in general, it might sound like Bladee is actually just tone deaf. But if you really listen a few more times, it's clear that he's not. Bladee misses notes and goes out of key pretty frequently, but if you're actually listening to what he's singing, it sounds like he has a coherent melody in mind. It's just more of a physical limitation of his voice that keeps him from always hitting the notes 100% on the spot. For this reason, his vocals actually kind of remind me of listening to like Sonic Youth and other noise-influenced music, because it's kind of like there's a malaise of dissonance over everything, but if you can listen past the dissonance and pick up the actual melody under it, then the tracks are actually really melodic and have some sweet tunes to them. The alternative R&B influenced track, X'd Out, has some of the catchiest and most unique vocal melodies on the album, and it has some nice harmonizing as well. And Romeo is probably one of the catchiest, poppiest cloud rap tracks ever recorded, with an ethereal vocal melody that's like a nice warm blanket over the spastic and glitchy synths. The tone of Bladee's vocals is probably going to be a turnoff for lots of people as well, along with his pitchiness, but the best way I can explain it is that his vocals aren't necessarily impressive, but they really effectively communicate a sort of dejected angst in a way. Bladee's digitized moaning strikes a lot of people as kind of talentless or effortless, but in a way that's kind of the appeal. If you've ever listened to Joy Division, you might kind of know what's going on with these vocals. It's kind of like the sort of jadedness that can only result from depression. The closer Skin isn't really impressive as a measure of vocal skill, but Bladee sells the emotion of lines like fall, 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 out of love and depart like no other. It basically sounds like he's too sad to sing with like real conviction or to actually sing the right notes. So in a way, it creates like a weird mixture of like comatoseness, but also like deep emotion. And the moment when he sings white, 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 gray to black ever since, right before this wash of synths, guitars, and auto-tuned moaning all comes in, gives me goosebumps pretty much every time I hear it through headphones. It's kind of like those sort of cheesy moments in movies when a character says the title of the movie.
That's it? What, we some kind of Suicide Squad?
In the context of this album, it actually hits really hard. The vocals on Love Note have a similar appeal to Skin, with the line, she gave me a love note, but I woke up with a cutthroat, succeeding again in capturing a shocking level of dejectedness, even though he's practically just like barely moaning out the words over the track. And the 808 on this track is also really cool. It's pretty massive, and it has a really cool texture because it's like the bass synth is layered on top of another synth under it. And the last thing to note about Bladee's vocals that might be hard for some people to digest is his accent. But if you talk to lots of Bladee fans, including myself, I would agree with this. I think his accent kind of helps to add like a sense of social anxiety in a way. This isn't going to be an obviously positive thing to lots of people, but alienation is a central theme of emo cloud rap, and his accent helps add a lot of kind of angsty awkwardness to his vocal performances. And the awkwardness also shines through in his lyrics, which is actually what draws me to really melodramatic tracks like Sugar or Wrist Cry. Similar to My Chemical Romance or any number of emo groups, Bladee communicates emotions that are so dramatic that they come across pretty much simultaneously as intense and tongue-in-cheek in a way. And I think the memeability of lyrics like this is also a big contributor to Bladee's popularity. Lines like, I feel like I could die, I don't care if I survive, on Wrist Cry. No touching, I find it disgusting, on Who Goes There. And your blood tastes so sweet, like sugar, baby, on Sugar. Lots of these lines have pretty much been memed to no end, and they're so melodramatic that they're only really going to be relatable on like the edgiest of days. So most of the time, they pretty much just come across as fun. And another element of Eversince that deserves praise is the percussion, because White Armor's beats actually show a lot of influence from drill and footwork. The instrumentals basically sound like if Young Chop got access to a bunch of Monster Cat synth presets and then spent hours making every track as dense with hi-hats and snares as possible. Tracks like Missing Person and Sick have pretty atmospheric synths, but the detail in the percussion programming is pretty crazy. The drums just fly by you in the left and right channels faster than you can really hold on to what the actual drum pattern even is. And finally, to touch on the two features, Echo 2K of Drain Gang actually shows up on both So What and Blood Veil Stillborn, both of which are two tracks with instantly catchy vocal melodies and plucky synths. Echo 2K's vocal style hadn't really been refined into the sort of breathy, high-pitched singing that he does nowadays, but he was already bringing the sort of characteristically freakish imagery that's present across a lot of his new debut album E. One of the weirdest passages is from Blood Veil. Breathing in the ash, X should mark the hidden past. 1,000 bits of glass on me, I got glitter hands. Turning into sand, vacuum seal like plastic bags. In the end, Eversince is an album that'll come across as unapproachable or just not worth being approached by lots of listeners. But for those who stick around past the initial smack to the face of the angst and the vocal warbliness, there's a really unique mixture here of really catchy, great melodies, outstanding production, as well as a sort of melodramatic, European weirdo alienation that's just very difficult to replicate. It's albums like this that people use as benchmarks in musical history, and it just happens to be fantastically enjoyable as well.